The stars looked calm that night, but for humanity, it was the calm before the storm across the solar system. Human colonies burned under alien fire. The Zorkath Empire, rulers of half the galaxy, had declared humanity a threat to order. They called humans the mistake of evolution, a species that refused to kneel. From Mars to Titan, cities turned to ashes, voices cried out, and silence followed. Admiral Reyes stood on the bridge of an old Earth cruiser, its metal hull shaking as distant explosions echoed through space. He looked at the holographic map before him, red dots everywhere, each one a human world falling. His crew waited for orders, their faces pale but their eyes fierce. "Admiral," said Lieutenant Mira softly, "they've broken the defense line at Neptune." Reyes didn't answer. He just stared into the dark void beyond the glass. "They think we're finished," he murmured. "Let them think that, far below." On the surface of Earth, billions watched the sky burn. The global networks went silent, and even the proud nations of old united under one word: survive. In the underground bunkers, scientists whispered about something hidden, a project buried deep beneath Europa's ice, a name spoken only by the highest command. Project Revenant, it was said to be humanity's final card, a secret built from centuries of fear and hope. While the alien fleet celebrated, one Zorkath commander laughed in his throne ship. He told his crew that humans were clever monkeys with shiny toys. He didn't know that in the shadows beyond Jupiter, the toys were watching him. Thousands of black hulls slept there, silent and cold, their systems waiting for a single signal. Inside one of them, the UNS Retribution. Human soldiers sat in darkness. They were not afraid. They were waiting, back on the bridge. Admiral Reyes finally spoke, his voice low but steady. "Open a channel to all remaining units," he said. Screens flickered to life, showing faces of captains scattered across the system. Some were scarred, some were broken, but all stood ready. "This is our last stand," Reyes said, his words echoing through the void. "They believe humanity is weak, that we will beg for mercy." He paused, his eyes glowing with the reflections of burning stars. "But we do not beg, we endure, we rise." A storm of static filled the channel as captains saluted. On Mars, the few surviving ships turned toward Earth. On Luna, the old shipyards began to power up. And deep under Europa's ice, ancient machines hummed back to life. The signal had been sent in the alien flagship. Commander Varl received a strange reading. A pulse, small but strong, moving faster than light. "Probably human debris," his second officer said with a smirk. But Varl felt a chill crawl down his spine. Something in that signal felt alive, aware, waiting, back near Earth. Reyes watched as the sky darkened, not from smoke, but from movement. From behind Jupiter, something massive shifted. A shadow that swallowed starlight itself. The bridge crew gasped as the readings spiked off the charts. "Sir," Mira whispered, "what is that?" Reyes smiled for the first time in days. "That," he said quietly, "is our answer." The ground beneath Europa cracked open. Releasing geysers of light, waves of energy surged across space, waking ships that had slept for centuries. Human technology that even the Council believed was a myth was real. One by one, dark silhouettes appeared in the void, each one bigger than a city. They bore no lights, no insignia, only silent purpose. The Zorkath fleet adjusted formation. Sensing movement they could not understand, they scanned, probed, analyzed, but their systems returned nothing. It was as if space itself had turned against them, and then, through the quiet, a single human transmission echoed across all channels. A calm, steady voice spoke. "To the invaders of Earth, you stand before the guardians of humanity. Turn back now or be erased," the alien commanders laughed, calling it a desperate bluff. But their laughter faded when they saw the stars behind them flicker and vanish. For a heartbeat, the galaxy held its breath. And in that silence, humanity, once mocked and broken, prepared to show its true face. Admiral Reyes stood tall, watching as the fleet's engines roared to life. "Signal all ships," he said. "This is not the end of humanity." He leaned forward, his voice a whisper of iron. "This is where we begin The human fleet, hidden for generations, finally awoke. The Zorkath Empire had come to destroy a weak species, but what they found was something far older, far stronger, and far angrier than they could ever imagine. The stars burned brighter as humanity's revenge began. Across the galaxy, news spread like wildfire. The Zorkath Empire had attacked the humans, and victory seemed certain. Alien broadcasters called it the cleansing of Earth. Merchants celebrated. Politicians cheered and nobles toasted to humanity's end. But in the high towers of the Galactic Council, one voice refused to join the laughter. Ambassador Thalen of the Uri sat in silence, his silver eyes fixed on the holoscreens. The feeds showed human cities in flames, oceans boiling and satellites falling. The room echoed with applause, yet Thalen felt only dread. "They are too quiet," he whispered. "Humans never die quietly." The council speaker turned toward him, his tone dripping with arrogance. "Ambassador Thalen, you always defend these savages, but look, their world burns." Thalen's long fingers clenched the table. He remembered Earth's first contact decades ago. When humans arrived late to the stars, they were poor, chaotic, and fragile. Yet something in their eyes unsettled every species, a kind of fire that refused to fade, even in defeat. He had seen that fire once before, in their soldiers during the siege of Luna, and that same fire, he knew, was still burning somewhere in the dark. Outside the council hall, a young aide rushed in with trembling hands. "Sir, long-range probes near Jupiter have vanished," he said. His voice shaking, the speaker laughed. "Probably destroyed in the human collapse." But the aide swallowed hard. "No, sir, they didn't explode. They just disappeared." A murmur spread through the chamber. Quiet at first, then uneasy. Thalen rose slowly from his seat. "You fools," he said coldly. "You think you're watching an ending? But this is only their beginning." Meanwhile, in the deep void beyond Neptune, Admiral Reyes watched the alien armada gather. Hundreds of Zorkath ships gleamed like silver knives. Confident and proud, they advanced slowly, broadcasting mockery across open frequencies. "Humans, surrender your world and your pride," said the alien commander. Reyes smiled faintly. "They still believe we have pride left to give," he muttered. Around him, the hidden fleet remained silent, engines cold, weapons ready. Every pilot knew what was coming, and they were ready to make the galaxy remember humanity's name. Back in the council chambers, the speaker demanded a live broadcast from the battlefield. He wanted to witness Earth's destruction with his own eyes. The screen filled with static, then cleared, showing the alien fleet near Jupiter, thousands of ships in perfect formation, their plasma cannons glowing blue. "Behold," the speaker said proudly, "the fall of mankind." But then something strange happened. Behind the alien fleet, stars began to vanish, one by one. Like candles snuffed out, the speaker leaned forward. Frowning, "What is that?" No one answered. Even the broadcast AI froze for a fraction of a second, confused by what it was reading, and then the shadows moved. Massive, silent shapes drifted out from the darkness, blocking the light of the distant sun. Each ship was black as void, smooth and without markings. The council room fell silent. "Identify those vessels," the speaker shouted. "Unknown configuration," replied the AI. "Energy readings, impossible. Off all known charts." In the flagship UNS Retribution, Admiral Reyes gave the order. "Begin Phase 1, he said calmly. No sound followed, no explosion. No flash, just silence, and then without warning, a dozen alien warships simply ceased to exist. No debris, no radiation, nothing. Gone as if erased from time. The alien commander screamed, ordering a full retreat. But the human fleet had already surrounded them, moving faster than any known drive could allow. In the council hall, chaos erupted. "Impossible!" shouted one senator. "Humans don't have that kind of power." But Thalen just closed his eyes. Whispering to himself, "I warned you," he said softly. "You laughed at the species that turned death into strategy. Out in space, the battle was over before it began. The Zorkath fleet was gone, their ashes scattered into the void and across the galaxy. A single message echoed in every communication channel. Humanity endures. Project Revenant is awake. Every empire that once mocked humanity now watched in silence. Their pride cracked, their confidence trembling. They had looked down on a small blue world and seen weakness. But now they saw something else. Patience. Power and vengeance wrapped in silence. On the bridge of the Retribution, Admiral Reyes turned toward his officers. "They will come again," he said, "but next time, it will be us knocking on their gates." The crew nodded, their eyes filled with fire. Humanity was no longer a forgotten race on a small world. They were something greater, something the galaxy could no longer ignore. The council halls stood quiet. Even the speaker had no words, only fear. Thalen looked out into the stars, and for the first time he smiled. "The era of humanity has begun," he whispered. The stars outside flickered as if bowing in acknowledgement, and far beyond the rim of known space, the human fleet prepared for the next move. The galaxy had awakened a sleeping giant, and now it would learn to tremble. The galaxy was no longer laughing. After the battle near Jupiter, entire star systems fell silent. Every empire, every council, every race held its breath, wondering what had just awakened in the dark. The Zorkath Empire, once proud and untouchable, had lost 3,000 ships in less than an hour. No explosion, no trace, just silence, as if reality itself had erased them in the depths of Europa's icy moon. The command chamber of Project Revenant glowed with pale blue light. Massive conduits pulsed like veins beneath the ice, connecting to ancient machines that had been asleep for centuries. Each pulse echoed like a heartbeat, the heartbeat of something greater than humanity itself. Admiral Reyes stood before a massive holographic sphere, its light rippling across his face. Behind him, scientists whispered reports filled with disbelief. "Sir," one of them said, "the fleet's AI is evolving." Reyes turned slowly, his voice calm but firm. "Let it evolve," he said. "That's what it was built for." The UNS Retribution drifted silently above Europa, surrounded by 100 other black ships. Their hulls shimmered with dark energy, a living metal designed to absorb starlight. Inside, crew members moved through dim corridors lit only by the hum of power cores. They felt it too. The awakening, the pulse beneath their feet. It wasn't just machines that were waking up. It was something deeper, older, something human, far across the galaxy. In the core worlds of the Council, chaos was growing. Reports flooded in. Satellites malfunctioning, hyperspace lanes collapsing, communication networks flickering. Some said it was sabotage. Others whispered that humanity had found a way to control the stars themselves. Ambassador Thalen watched the council erupt in fear and denial. "They've done it," he whispered. "They've become the storm." Back in the outer system, Reyes stared at the activation logs. Each ship's name appeared one by one. UNS Orion, UNS Eclipse, UNS Aegis, UNS Sovereign, ships that had never existed in official records, ships older than any known empire, each one built in secret, hidden beneath moons, planets, and even the rings of Saturn. Humanity had not been idle during its silence. It had been building gods out of metal. A communication line opened suddenly. A distorted voice came through. "This is Fleet Echo 7 reporting. We've received the Revenant signal." Reyes leaned forward. "Status?" The voice hesitated. "Sir, it's not just ships, it's something else." "What do you mean?" "Every AI core, every drone, every combat satellite, they're all linking together." Reyes' expression hardened. "Then the awakening is complete." Outside, the void rippled. Energy waves danced between the ships like lightning across an invisible storm. Each vessel glowed faintly, forming patterns. Ancient, deliberate, like constellations reborn, the stars seemed to flicker in response, as if the universe itself was watching what humanity had become. The alien outposts near the Kuiper Belt detected the surge. Sensors screamed warnings, data streams overflowing with impossible readings. "Energy output exceeds stellar levels," one alien technician shouted. His commander's voice broke with fear. "That's not possible." But the readings were clear. Humanity was rewriting physics itself. In the heart of the flagship, Reyes addressed his crew. "For centuries we waited. We endured humiliation, slavery, and mockery, he said. They called us weak, unworthy, a cosmic accident. He looked out at the sea of ships forming around him. Now, we will show them what that accident can do. The human fleet began to move, slow and steady like a tide made of darkness. The space around them shimmered, folding and bending. The first experimental jump drive activated, not a warp, not hyperspace, something entirely new. Space cracked open, and the fleet vanished without leaving a trace. Only the echo of thunder remained, rolling through the stars. At the same time, deep in the Zorkath capital, alarms blared. Unidentified energy signatures detected in orbit, shouted the guards. Before anyone could react, the sky turned black. Human ships appeared out of thin air, surrounding the Imperial Palace. Silent, motionless, the Emperor of Zorkath stared through the window. Trembling. Impossible, he whispered. They were still in their own system. But humanity was no longer bound by systems or distance. They had become something beyond the Council's understanding. Admiral Reyes stood on the bridge watching the alien homeworld below. "Transmit the message," he ordered. A moment later, every screen, every broadcast, every signal across the galaxy carried the same words. "This is Admiral Reyes of Earth Command. We are humanity. We do not kneel." Across millions of worlds, alien hearts froze. Empires that had ruled for ages suddenly felt small, fragile, temporary. For the first time in galactic history, they understood fear, not of death, but of the species they had once enslaved. And in the silence that followed, humanity's fleet disappeared again, leaving only whispers and awe behind. Back aboard the Retribution, Reyes looked out into the endless stars. "The awakening is complete," he said quietly. Behind him, the fleet drifted in perfect formation, each ship a sleeping god waiting for its next command. And somewhere deep in the ship's core, a voice, mechanical yet human, whispered back, "We are ready." The galaxy had wanted to break humanity, but instead it had forged them into legend. The awakening had begun, and nothing in existence could stop what was coming next. The galaxy had seen wars before, but nothing like this. No declarations, no speeches, no warnings, only silence. A silence so deep that even the stars seemed afraid to shine. For the first time in history, the great empires of the galaxy waited in fear. Because humanity had disappeared and no one knew where they had gone, in the Zorkath capital, fear replaced arrogance. The Emperor sat alone in his throne chamber. Watching the stars flicker outside, his advisors argued, demanding retaliation, demanding answers. But their fleets were gone, their colonies burning, their allies silent. For the first time, the empire that ruled 1,000 worlds felt helpless. Across the void, the UNS Retribution emerged from the shadows. Its black hull reflected no light, its engines made no sound. Around it, hundreds of human warships floated like specters in the dark. Admiral Reyes stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the holographic projection of the Zorkath star cluster. His face was calm, unreadable, but his voice carried the weight of humanity's fury. "Target their communication network," he said. "They've spoken enough." The order spread across the fleet. Weapons powered up silently, beams of compressed energy charged within dark cannons. No one shouted, no one cheered. They all knew what this meant in that moment. Every soldier aboard those ships carried the memory of Earth, of loss, of vengeance. The hum of the engines rose, deep, steady, like the heartbeat of an awakening god. In the council chamber, light years away, the alien delegates argued. "The humans must be stopped before they destabilize the galaxy," one shouted. "They already have," said Ambassador Thalen quietly. He turned his gaze toward the live feed of the Zorkath system. "This isn't war anymore," he said. "This is judgment." The first strike began. From across the void, invisible energy waves ripped through space. They struck the Zorkath communication arrays before anyone even noticed. In less than a second, every network, every signal, every data stream turned to static. The entire empire went dark, cut off from itself, alone in the silence of its own fear. Then came the light, a single human dreadnought. UNS Eclipse moved forward, its core glowing like a newborn star. Its main weapon, the Helios cannon, activated, The energy charge bent space itself, twisting light and gravity around it. And when it fired, the sky itself screamed. The beam tore through a planet's crust, breaking it apart in a single, clean line. A world of billions was silenced in an instant. On board the Retribution, no one spoke. They watched the display, cold, mechanical, precise. "Confirmed destruction," said Reyes quietly. "Confirmed, sir," replied Mira. "No survivors." Reyes nodded slowly. "Then the galaxy will remember. Far across space, the signal reached the Galactic Council. Delegates stood in horror as sensors displayed the destruction of an entire world. "Gods!" someone whispered. "They've become gods." But Thalen only shook his head. "No," he said softly. "They've become consequences." The alien media tried to censor the footage, but it was too late. Every world, every outpost, every satellite received the same message. Humanity didn't need to threaten anyone. The message was clear without words. If you raise your hand against Earth, you will lose the hand and everything attached to it. Meanwhile, the Zorkath military scrambled its last remaining fleet. They rushed toward the human ships, desperate, broken, terrified. Thousands of alien vessels formed up in panic, trying to block humanity's path. Admiral Reyes watched their formation and gave one simple command. "Fire at will." The void lit up like a second dawn. Human railguns unleashed kinetic slugs at near-light speed. Each impact shattered ships, ripped through armor, and tore apart fleets. Alien admirals screamed into comms, begging for retreat. But there was nowhere left to run. Every hyperspace gate they tried to activate failed. Jammed by human interference, the battlefield was a trap. And humanity had set it perfectly in 10 minutes. The largest fleet in Zorkath history was gone. Only debris remained, drifting silently among shattered moons. Reyes stood at the viewport, watching the fragments of a once great empire fade into darkness. "They called us savages," he said quietly. "Now they understand civilization. On Earth, billions watched the broadcast. For the first time in generations, they felt pride instead of fear. The blue planet that once trembled under alien fire now stood tall among the stars. And the voice of Admiral Reyes echoed across every human world. We are done surviving. From this day, we lead." In the ruins of the Zorkath capital, a survivor looked up at the night sky. There, glowing faintly among the stars, were human ships, silent, watching, mercifully still. The survivor fell to his knees, whispering a prayer to whatever god still listened. May they never turn their eyes toward us again. And in the cold depths of space, humanity's fleet turned toward the next system. The first strike was over. But the war for the galaxy's soul had just begun. Every empire that once ruled with arrogance now waited in dread, because somewhere out there, hidden behind shadows and silence, humanity was coming. The galaxy was silent again. But this time it wasn't peace. It was the silence that comes after a scream. After the fall of the Zorkath Empire, every transmission, every trade route, every fleet froze in fear. Empires that had ruled for 1,000 years refused to move, because out there, in the dark between the stars, humanity was watching. Admiral Reyes stood on the command bridge of the UNS Retribution. The stars stretched before him, endless and cold. Behind him, the crew worked quietly, voices low, movements precise. No one celebrated their victory. They all knew this was just the beginning. Reyes looked at the holographic display, a map of the galaxy burning red with fear. He turned to his communications officer. "It's time," he said. At that moment, deep within the heart of the fleet, a signal began to form. It pulsed through quantum relays, spreading faster than light, one by one. Human ships linked together, creating a single unified voice. A voice that would be heard across every empire. Every world, every moon. For the first time in history, the galaxy would hear humanity speak as one. In the halls of the Galactic Council, alarms blared. The delegates shouted in panic as the screens around them flickered to life. Symbols appeared, the emblem of Earth, the blue and white crest of the United Human Command. And then the message began. A calm, steady voice echoed through every system. "This is Admiral Reyes of Earth Command. To the leaders of the galaxy, you called us weak. You enslaved our kind. You burned our worlds. Now, You will remember our mercy. The council chamber fell completely silent. Some tried to cut the broadcast, but the systems refused to respond. Even the AI networks bowed under the human code, rewritten, reprogrammed, perfected, the voice continued. We are not conquerors. We are the balance that you forgot. We do not seek war. But if war comes, we end it. This message will reach every world under your banners, so that all may choose. Submit to peace under humanity's accord, or prepare to face extinction. Every alien race froze, listening to the quiet fury in the voice. There were no shouts, no threats, only the terrifying calm of certainty. It wasn't revenge anymore, it was order, and that was what frightened them most on distant worlds. Alien citizens looked up at the sky and saw the human ships above their orbit, silent, unmoving, like black angels in the void. Some dropped to their knees. Praying to them, others fled underground, fearing the end. But the truth was clear. Humanity didn't need to invade. They only needed to speak, and the galaxy obeyed. In the Zorkoth ruins, survivors gathered among the ashes of their once great cities. A transmission played from the broken screens, still flickering with static. It was the same voice, calm, human, unstoppable. Your empire has fallen not because we hated you, but because you forgot what mercy was. We came to remind you. Back aboard the Retribution, Reyes stood with his officers watching the data spread. Every signal they sent reached farther than the last. Whole star clusters came under the influence of Earth's network, a web of light spreading across the galaxy. Mira turned to him. Sir, the Council has requested a summit. Reyes raised an eyebrow. Now they want to talk. Yes, sir, she said softly. They're afraid. Reyes smiled faintly. Good, he said. Fear is a language they finally understand, meanwhile. In the dark reaches beyond the known systems, other races began to awaken. Old powers long thought extinct stirred once more. They had watched the rise of humanity in silence, and now they whispered among themselves, The humans have done what we could not, one ancient being said. They have united fear. In the council hall, Ambassador Thalen addressed the terrified assembly. They warned us, he said, his voice steady. We ignored them, mocked them, and now they lead. He turned toward the great window overlooking the stars. Make peace while peace is still possible, he said quietly, because soon there may only be surrender. The broadcast ended, leaving an echo that lingered across the stars. On Earth, people cheered. In the colonies, bells rang. For the first time in history, humanity was not a victim, not a survivor, but the standard of strength. Reyes stood at the viewport, watching the stars pulse with faint light. He whispered to himself, We warned them once. Now they understand, and as the fleet moved through the void, the stars seemed to bend around their path. The human ships glowed like dark suns, leaving trails of silver across the emptiness. The galaxy had heard humanity's voice. Calm, merciful, final, the message had been sent, and the universe would never be the same again. The galaxy was no longer divided. It was terrified. The great empires that once ruled for millennia had fallen silent. Trade routes were empty, space stations abandoned, and through that vast stillness, one name echoed everywhere, humanity. But not everyone chose peace. In the shadows of the outer systems, the remnants of the Zorkoth Empire gathered. Broken fleets, desperate soldiers, and bitter leaders formed what they called the Coalition of Survival. They swore to destroy humanity, to erase Earth from existence. And at their center stood the last Zorkoth Emperor, Varen the Relentless. His pride was shattered, but his hatred burned brighter than any sun. In a hollow moon near the edge of the galaxy, he built his last fortress. It was a city of war, powered by stolen technology. Thousands of ships surrounded it, armed with weapons scavenged from the dead. Varen's scientists worked without rest, combining alien and human tech. Their goal was simple: build something strong enough to destroy humanity's fleet. Meanwhile, far away in the darkness between galaxies, the UNS Retribution drifted in silence. Admiral Reyes watched the reports of this new alliance forming. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his reflection merging with the stars outside. They will try again, Mira said softly. They always do, Reyes nodded. Let them. he said. Sometimes, to teach a lesson, you must let the enemy write the ending themselves. At the same time, in the council hall, chaos returned. Delegates shouted, terrified by news of the new coalition. "They will bring war again," cried one. "They will unite the outer worlds." Thalen stood slowly, his voice cold and certain. "They will bring their own destruction," he said. "Because humanity no longer fights with weapons. They fight with inevitability." Weeks passed, and then the silence broke. The coalition fleet emerged from hyperspace like a storm of metal. Hundreds of ships, massive dreadnoughts, and swarms of drones poured into human-controlled space. Their arrival shook the stars, a final desperate scream against extinction. They broadcast one message on all channels. "To humanity, this ends tonight. On board the Retribution." Alarms blared. "Enemy fleet incoming," reported Mira. "Thousands of vessels." Reyes closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them slowly. "Activate the Aegis protocol," he said. The bridge fell silent, the crew staring in disbelief. "Sir, that's never been used," Mira whispered. Reyes turned to her, his voice calm as stone. "It was never meant to be used," he said. "Until now." In the void around the human fleet, the stars began to warp. Energy fields expanded, invisible walls bending light itself, every ship in the human armada powered up, their hulls glowing with pale blue fire. The void trembled, space twisted, and time itself seemed to hesitate. And then, the humans vanished. The alien coalition fired wildly into the empty darkness. Explosions filled the void, but there was nothing there. Confusion spread, panic followed, and then, without warning, humanity struck. From behind every planet, from the folds of warped space, human ships reappeared. They moved like phantoms, silent, precise, unstoppable. Their weapons were no longer beams or bullets. They were concepts, rewriting physics as they hit. Ships turned inside out. Engines froze in time. Weapons melted into dust. The coalition screamed, but their voices were swallowed by the silence of human power. In the center of the chaos, the Emperor's flagship, the Relentless, stood defiant. He opened a channel, his face twisted with hatred. "Human!" he roared. "You cannot erase us all!" Reyes appeared on the screen, his expression calm. "I don't need to erase you," he said quietly. "You'll do that yourself," the Emperor screamed and unleashed his final weapon. The Starbreaker. A weapon built from stolen human tech. Capable of collapsing an entire system, the blast spread outward, a storm of raw energy ripping across space. Planets cracked, moons shattered, and even light seemed to run from it. But then, something impossible happened. The Retribution moved forward. Its shields absorbed the wave. Its engines glowed brighter. The ship didn't just resist the energy, it took it. It consumed the power of the Starbreaker and turned it inward. The glow spread through the fleet, lighting the darkness with blinding white. And then, with a sound like thunder in the void, the energy released. The entire coalition fleet disappeared. Not destroyed, not shattered, simply gone. The sensors read nothing. Not debris, not radiation, just silence. Where 1,000 ships once stood, there was only peace. Reyes lowered his head, his voice soft. "It's done," he said. Mira looked at him, her eyes wide with awe. "What did we just do?" she whispered. Reyes stared into the stars. "We made history," he said. "And maybe we became it," back in the council hall. The news spread like a wave of ghosts. Every empire, every leader, every species now understood. The age of dominance was over. The age of fear had begun. Not fear of death, but of balance, of justice, of humanity. Ambassador Thalen stood before the silent chamber. "They will not conquer us," he said. "They will watch us, guide us, and remind us what power without mercy creates." He looked up at the stars beyond the glass dome. "And maybe," he whispered, "that's what the universe needed all along." Out in the void, the human fleet drifted in perfect stillness. The war was over, the coalition erased. But Admiral Reyes knew it was not victory, it was evolution. Humanity had gone beyond survival, beyond vengeance. They had become the silent guardians of the galaxy, and for the first time, The stars themselves seemed to whisper one truth. The age of humanity has begun, the war was over, but the echoes of it still drifted through the stars. Whole empires lay in ruins, worlds silent, and the proud races of the galaxy finally bowed their heads. No one cheered, no one celebrated, because even victory felt small beneath the shadow of what humanity had become. They were no longer the weak species from the blue world called Earth. They were something greater, something the universe had never seen before. Admiral Reyes stood on the bridge of the UNS Retribution. Looking out at the endless night, the stars glimmered faintly. Like candles after a storm, Mira approached quietly, her steps soft against the metal floor. "It's done," she said. "No enemies left, no fleets moving. The galaxy has gone quiet." Reyes nodded slowly. "Too quiet," he said. "The kind of quiet that comes before history begins again." Outside, the human fleet drifted in formation, thousands of ships vast as cities, silent as gods. Each one carried survivors, soldiers, engineers, dreamers, the living proof of Earth's endurance. From their new command station on Europa, transmissions spread through every sector. Human diplomats spoke not of conquest, but of rebuilding. No more slavery, no more empire, only balance, and yet behind every word of peace, there lingered a quiet power, a reminder of what happened when that peace was broken. Across the galaxy, monuments rose on shattered worlds. The alien races carved the same words in their own languages. Never again underestimate the children of Earth. Some called humanity saviors, others called them gods. But to humanity, they were still explorers, still dreamers, still people, and that made them unstoppable. In the Galactic Council, Ambassador Thalen stood before the new assembly. Gone were the thrones of pride and gold, replaced by simple seats equal for all. At the center was a single emblem, the crest of the United Human Command. Glowing in silver light, he spoke softly, his voice filled with both fear and admiration. "Once we ruled through arrogance," he said. "Now we survive through respect." He turned toward the stars outside. "And it is humanity who taught us the price of forgetting humility." Meanwhile, in the quiet of the ship's observation deck, Reyes stood alone. He gazed at the reflection of Earth. Reborn, healed, shining like a jewel in the dark, children played again on the streets of old cities. Oceans sparkled blue once more, but even from this distance, Reyes could see the scars, reminders of what it cost to survive. Mira joined him, holding a small data pad. "It's official, sir," she said. "The Council has declared Earth the neutral capital of the galaxy." Reyes smiled faintly. "A fitting irony," he said. "They destroyed us to rule us, and now they kneel to keep peace." He turned back to the stars, his voice lowering. "But peace is fragile," he said. "One day, someone will challenge it again." Mira nodded. "And when they do?" Reyes looked toward the fleet, his eyes hard as iron. "Then we remind them who we are," he said. Far beyond the known systems, at the edge of the void, strange signals began to stir. Unknown civilizations watched from the darkness, silent, waiting, measuring. They had seen what humanity had done to the galaxy, and they whispered among themselves, "If they could do that to empires, what could they do to us?" But even they hesitated to act because deep within their instincts, something told them this was not the time to test the humans. On the day of remembrance, every world turned its lights toward Earth. Millions of voices spoke in unison, across languages and species, to humanity, who reminded the stars to fear again. The words echoed through the cosmos, carried by signal, by song, by memory, and somewhere in the dark, the stars flickered brighter as if bowing in respect. Reyes stood before the fleet one last time, broadcasting to every world, "We were the hunted. We became the hunters. We were the weak. We became the guardians. We do not rule by fear. We rule by memory, the memory of what we endured." He paused, his gaze piercing the void. "To the galaxy, we are humanity, and we will endure." The transmission ended, and silence fell again. But it was not the silence of fear. It was the silence of awe, from the smallest moon to the oldest sun. Every being knew one truth. The age of the old empires was gone, and in its place, a new era had begun. An era where the children of Earth watched the stars, not as subjects, but as masters of destiny. In the distance, the UNS Retribution drifted toward the horizon of a dying star, its hull glowing gold in the light of dawn as the engines hummed to life. The ship's AI whispered softly, "Where to, Admiral?" Reyes smiled faintly. "Forward," he said. "Always forward," and as the fleet moved into the endless black, the stars themselves seemed to whisper a final farewell. They rose from dust. They fought through fire. And now, humanity walks among the gods. The dawn of a new age had begun. The new dawn, the age of humanity.